Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, Amir Reiter here with the Transform Sales Podcast. I got my guest, Mustafa Ali, CEO of Scalemill. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey Amir, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. And
likewise. Yeah, so it's. I think you interacted with us in our marketplace maybe like a year ago during a pivot, and all of a sudden, I think I emailed you and connected with you for the podcast, and we took the time just now to catch up. It's exciting learning about some of the amazing agencies from around the world that are selling into all these different markets, probably better than some locals. So I'm excited to talk to you today. And first, before getting into the show, just love to hear about how you got into the whole sales agency business to begin with. What's the journey? How did you get here? Why are you torturing yourself in this business?
Great question. So, born and raised here in Pakistan, and then sort of went to Germany for my master's, and there I started actually interning at a SaaS company. So, software as a sales company, was in the reviews and rating space.
Yep.
And that was like sort of my first intro into sales, where I was in sales operations, had no idea what that was, tracking KPIs, calls, emails, how much MRR, ARR, all these terms.
Yeah.
And so that really was my first sort of intro into sales. And then I grew with that company, positioned into a sales role. They wanted to expand into the US. And so they literally went into the US, started hiring all these people that they could find. Obviously, that they weren't a good fit. That was the time where sort of predictable revenue and this whole concept of SDRs and sales cadences was coming out. So we tried it, horribly failed. And then, so I was thinking, we're spending so much money on this. And I know, back home in Pakistan, we have all this talent. It's a traditional call center destination, but there's software sales being done, unless it's like homegrown stuff and a few companies here and there. So I was like, yeah, let's try and set up a team there and see how they do it.
How long ago was that? I like the story. I like a few things about it. How long ago are we talking? Because how many years ago?
This is almost 10 years back. So we started out in 2014.
So what I like about it is that you were the sales op guy, right? And sales ops back in the day was overlooked in a way, right? And then you saw all the action happening and probably the inefficiencies in SDR work, right? And because it sounds very similar to how I got into it almost 10 years ago, working for NetSuite, a software company, as an AE, but seeing some of the inefficiencies at the SDR level. And then ironically, sales ops is everything today. So I think in the past 10 years, that was like the unspoken about position. Now it's like the key. So that to me, that sounds like a nice core for running an agency, because if you can control the metrics that matter and connecting the right technologies, and as you mentioned, having access to talent that already speaks, and like your English is perfect, right? Already has been working in the United States for a long time. I do know that Pakistan, India it's been a huge destination for BPO work, for IT stuff. But sales is different, right? And I think it sounds similar to kind of what I did in Colombia when I moved here, where call centers are very common, but not for sales. And I feel like I helped bring B2B software sales to Latin America. And it sounds like you're the guy doing it in APAC, which is awesome. So it's a cool story, and I like it, because it's for me, people that are in the industry that have that skill, that observe a problem, that fix it, and then use it themselves tend to really know what's going on. So that's great. For the rest of the show, the idea here is just transparency, right? I think we're looking at 2023. We got a lot of companies that create content, raise a lot of money, and oftentimes the wrong products and the wrong services are getting into the hands of the wrong people, which creates more inefficiency. So for us, I'd love for people listening to the show. We got a combination of people. We got agencies that are listening to learn more about other agencies. We got freelancers that eventually want to become agency owners. We got people who've outsourced before and it failed, but they're back again. We got people who've never failed at outsourcing and just want to continue to build companies. So we got a wide range of people that are listening. But I think the idea here is to just talk about like the pain stories that hurt your heart, where you're like, oh man, if these guys just trusted me. I can
Yeah.
deliver for them. So let's get in it. Top of mind. What's the number one most common mistake that buyers make when engaging you before hiring you? Because we're going to get into the mistake they make when they hire you, but
Okay.
before hiring you.
That would have to be sort of like, a pricing question. So I think the thing that, I don't know if I should use bad words, but let's say upsets me the most before
You can say whatever the fuck
buying.
you want.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So what pisses me off the most is, people come and they're like, hey, why don't you work on a variable sort of basis, right? Like, no base, no salary, nothing like
Yeah.
that for your reps, and just, not even at like if you schedule an appointment, because we do a lot of SDR work, which is top of the funnel, cold
Yep.
outbound. I think that's what I think. But and once something closes, we'll give you a really big share and this and that, and it's like I've seen that proper companies that do have a good product would never expect that. It's more that, hey, there's two founders with a half baked product and they want like, hey, just some cheap resources to validate their ideas or whatever. And it's like that's something that I don't understand, because of course if you want to succeed you gotta, and I'm not saying, hey, give me all the money up front. Our terms are super convenient, we're cheap, we're flexible, we want to work with a lot of companies, but just keeping it like purely on a price perspective and just not expecting any sort of fees to be paid is, I think, a little bit unreasonable. And I don't think you get good talent that way, whether it's in-house, whether it's outsourced. However, I just don't think that's a good strategy or a way any business should go.
Yeah. Well, to everybody listening, I can expand. I know what you're saying in a deeper way because it's very intimate to me. But you're really in a nutshell talking about like the number one mistakes buyers make overall is unrealistic expectations, right?
Yeah.
And then you could subcategorize, because you said a few things, right? Because you almost were like, hey man, pay performance, like it's not even that we'll say no to pay per meeting, like you want pay on commission. Yeah. And if I ask you who your best customers are, who you help them, you can't even answer that, right? So it's like unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
And then at the same time they're trying to, it's almost like, I think we have a term that we call a market validation campaign, right? Because we as a marketplace are trying to segment the type of campaigns, because not every campaign is the same, right? Exactly, so yeah. If I'm hearing you correctly, unrealistic expectations, but also many of the buyers are negotiating commission only when they really don't even have market validation, right? And that hurts them, right? Because
sorry, I'm cutting you off, because what you're saying is totally correct, man. Because when you initially asked me, hey, what's the number one thing? And so what I was initially going to say is, so then I asked them, hey, what's your ICP? What's your sweet spot? Where have you been successful? And they're like, we don't know. We want to try, like, we want to sell to e-commerce stores that have Magento running. And I'm like, man, like every single person wants to do that. So at least if you want to succeed, at least look at your own data and say, hey guys, this is where we're super successful. This is what we make. You want in, it's a good opportunity.
They can't even pitch you. I've met those people and I said, you know what? Make pretend I'm a prospect. Call me and right now and give me your talk track. And they've gotten pissed off at me versus being leaders and being like, of course, Mustafa, what's going on? We help. They'll get mad and you're like, man, you can't even make the appointment yourself. So, I got excited about diving deep into what you said because it's my job now. It's my job now to like dive deeper, right? Like, because I know what it's like to be an agency owner. Like, you can't tell people the truth. You can't be like, hey, you don't have market validation and this is what's going to happen, because they're so set on the fact that they'll buy their problems away versus that revenue is your whole lifeblood. It's your whole business, right? So it's like, if you're going to go find a top developer to build your product and pay top notch, but then you're going to go negotiate commission only to sell your product, it's like you got nothing without sales, right? Like, if anything, it's very common for me to see, and I'm sure you see this, where people are like, I got the best product, I got the best technology, I raised $2 million, I spent it all on the product. And what you realize is that they built the most complex product for themselves, right? And then they're like, my product does blah, 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 blah. And the only thing that buyers care about is like, it'll get you off spreadsheets, right? and
Yeah.
they then have zero money for go to market, and then they're engaging, and yeah, it's a problem. So I think symptomatically, it's interesting, but I think I believe that what happened in the last 10 years, especially from what you mentioned, like you were born out of the whole predictable revenue kind of boom, right? I feel like all the tech, everything we built was about volume, speed, and efficiency, and nothing was about go-to-market planning. There was just no education about go-to-market planning, right?
Yes.
And I don't know if you guys know, if you know Winning by Design. You know Hako. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm going to butcher it. By Winning by Design. Are you familiar with him?
I've heard the name, but now I think I need
You
to deep
should,
dive.
and I want to share stuff because he breaks down the go-to-market plans like in a scientific way, but like because he's not $1 billion CEO, it's like no one pays attention because it's not sexy. Everyone pays attention to the outreaches, the other stuff, right? And everybody is like, people are like not getting educated on this stuff. Um, what do you think is a potential cure for that? Is there something that agencies can be doing better to educate it? Is it just a symptom of, do we work around it? Like, what do we do? What do we do with that problem? Do you fix it?
That's a great question, man. And but I want to say it's not all across the it's not across the board. Like, so the sort of world that I was born into when we talk about SaaS sales, and then the CEOs and founders that I worked with, they were like you said, they were like, hey, let me pick up the phone. Hey, you can do it, let's do it. And they're like, for many of them I work, they're like sales, 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 sales. Like, this is what's driving our revenue. So there are people
I'm gonna
on the
stop you.
other.
You're getting to my last question. My last question is who your best customer. Of course, you got. We're talking about the mistakes, man. But see, the mistakes are
Yeah,
even uncomfortable to talk about, right?
yeah,
Because we're not rewarded for being honest. I think we live in a society where we're not rewarded for being like, you don't want to do this, this, and this because I already lost $10 million doing it, and you don't want to do the same mistake. We're not rewarded by saying that, right? So I think it's naturally you
exactly.
always want to talk about the good stuff, but you'll get there. We're going to get there.
Yeah,
It's
I
going to
think to
be
answer your question, the only way is, and I think that's what you were saying as well, is to show them, like if I'm talking to a CEO who's even a current customer, and they're like, hey, I want to do this, that, I literally sort of like share my screen and be like, hey, look, we're doing this for other companies. This is what we're doing. This is working. This is not working. And then sometimes there's an aha moment, like, some of these CEOs that I speak to, and you mentioned this too, like, they still want to work off Google Sheets, and I understand that. Like, if I'm prospecting alone, validating an idea, I would probably use Google Sheets too. I love it. But if I'm setting up a team of 10 SDRs and I want to scale, and like I expect everyone to make 50 calls a day, we know that Google Sheets won't work. It's not even fast enough to handle like 5 people on it at the same time dealing with the thousands of leads. So I think what helps is, like showing them that, hey, this is literally what we're doing right now for others. This is working, this is not working. At the end, the decision is yours, but please trust us because you're paying us for something. And yeah,
yeah.
so that's a little bit of education.
I have a very basic approach to it, right? Because we're doing our part. We can't do it all, but like interesting enough, as a marketplace, my approach to trying to solve for those problems is, and there's no really word for it, but it's more of like marketplace led growth, where like they can read the filters and actually understand what it means. Because I don't know if you ever looked at like buying a computer from eBay. All of a sudden, you have like RAM. You got the
Yeah.
things right, and then you have all these other things. And it starts giving you an easy way of being like, video card. Oh, what's this? And then you see the definition, you get it. So I'm hoping that by giving people a buying experience where they use filters, where they can hit market validation, campaign type, and then they're like, they see the choices, and they're like, I don't know what these mean, and then they hit a question mark, and they market validation is when you have a new product and you don't know XYZ, and then they're like, man, that's me. So I think my way of doing it is I want people to self-identify, because I feel like we live in a world where people are so, I would say, insulted by like the truth, that like we need them to discover it themselves. If that makes sense, because sometimes you could tell someone something and that's not me, but then they read it and like, that's me.
I like that, what you said. And you said about when I filled out the form, I think you've been thinking along these lines since before, because even the form that I filled out, and I know now you're doing it on a
Yeah.
platform more structured, but the form also helped me do exactly what you're saying, self-identify that, hey, what kind of agency am I? What tools do I use? And then I know, like, okay, these are the kind of customers that I want to go after. Of course, I have my own ICP and all that stuff, but really, like, hey, what is it in terms of service that we want to go after? What are we good at?
Yeah.
So I really like that approach, and it works both ways.
I
it's
love
not
I
just
love hearing that, because remember, I was you, right, for 6 years, right? So turning into a marketplace, turning into the fact that I'm on the buyers and sellers side, it's new for me
yeah,
as well. But we are always talking about that as well. How, like, it's hard to get a product or get a straight answer for agencies, because they're not used to being focused
yes,
into this box. But by creating it per listing, now we can start creating, you can start identifying who you are, right, and what you're doing, and what businesses you want to take. And yeah, I'm like, look, we're just a part of the whole thing, right? We're a marketplace on top of the industry to help the industry. We can't do it all ourselves, so obviously it takes two to tango. But that's ideally what we want. I think we live in this world where we think that everybody just needs to be, to be a $1 billion company, we need to be complicated, and sometimes it's just doing ABCD really right. You know what I mean?
exactly, yeah.
Like, yeah, like we didn't get into your best customers, or but let's just say it's like HR tech. There could be a way that maybe
It is HR tech, man. You're reading my mind today. So
there you go. So, like, if you could get just the 30 million HR tech, it's a positive feedback loop, because now the more you're doing it, the better you're at. So it's like, you should, that 80-20 rule, right? Now you get a good reputation, more referrals for HR, right?
yeah,
So yeah, like that's kind of what we're trying really hard to do. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but it's like, man, if we can make it easy for you, the agency, easy for the buyer, everybody kind of wins, because people want easy. It's just that when they have a way of not doing it, they tend to fight, right? So it's like,
yeah.
if we got an easy way to communicate, right, in government, we're good. But if we're divided, we fight with each other and nothing gets done. And that's kind of what's happened in the buyer stuff. But that's awesome. I appreciate the feedback. Let's get into, like, one more thing before we get into who your best clients are, which you kind of hinted, which is HR.
Yeah.
What mistakes the buyers make when they're working with you, right? Like, they signed up, they're happy. Now it's started, right? Like, we don't have to get too granular, because I'm sure there's mistakes people make in month 1, 2, and 3, because there's such, specific periods. But is there, like, this common repeating mistake that is made, that you've seen, that would help if people stop doing?
It's covered by the point you said, like unrealistic expectations. So even when they start, so two things come to mind. One is expecting results immediately, because I feel like there's no awareness that, hey, I'm working with an agency, they're working with a bunch of people. Even if I were to hire, and our ramp up time is a couple of weeks, right, till we
Which
start
is
giving.
faster
Yeah.
than the 90-day standard.
Yeah, so
For you.
and then that's exactly what I tell them, man, that I know I've been there, because when I was hired, it was like, hey, you have a 6-month probation period, and after 3 months, we'll start talking to you about performance. So at least give us like 3 weeks, to start delivering the numbers. And then I think the second thing more is a little bit of an understanding of, like, there's a difference between an outbound a lead that's a sales qualified lead, or that's generated by outbound prospecting, and a warm lead that sort of comes in on your website.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a difference in intent.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, the AEs need to, like, understand a little bit that, hey, like, hey, I've been getting warm leads, now I start working with this agency, and the first 5 leads they gave me, they're not super qualified. And obviously, like, no matter how much tech we put into it, no matter how much sort of sales signals, buying signals, and getting lead intelligence we do, you can't really sort of, there will be a difference between someone who's come and signed up on your website and someone who you call.
They typically, if they sign up on the website, they might have bands, they might have budget, authority, timeline, and need, right? And then you walk right into it, and you're like, what are you here for? What did you sign up to? And you're getting into it. Where outbound, they might from an exterior have that, but they don't know it themselves. And
Exactly.
and you got to create the need, right? Like you can't talk to them like they found you. You found them, and so, like, they get right into the call versus, like, warming it up. Apologies for disrupting you. I know this was we brought this to your attention. Versus, what are you here? Like, so they try to treat an outbound lead, and then the person's like, dude, you're asking me 30 times to come in a meeting. Why are you asking these questions if I have money, time, need? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, I just agreed to a meeting. show me the need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think we can even break it down to like, that's probably the most common mistake is that I would mention that AEs are not necessarily trained on the fact that need from an inbound is going to be there because they found you, and need from an outbound won't be there. It could, right? Like by the time someone gets a call, they could do research, they could find that need, but they might not. They might have just been like, I'm going to take the meeting and I want. So it's like they can focus on that need is questions, right? So like to uncover
Exactly.
need, you build rapport, right?
A
So
little bit of discovery is needed, and I'm not saying that of course, as time goes along, it's also the job of the SDR to kind of like probe and ask some
I
discovery
don't think
questions.
so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if you're calling somebody to get them on a meeting and that's your KPI,
Yeah,
I don't think it's a bad experience to be diving into need. Maybe,
because like you said, man, like I'm calling you. I've done some research and seen, hey, Amir published this post. I say, hey, I saw this. I
yeah.
feel like it's something you'd be interested in. And then I start asking you, hey, do you have budget, or are you the signing off authority? You're gonna be like, man, f off, like
No, I would say the best questions to ask are around need, right? Around that, because that's when you focus on need, you focus on them, right? Budget is like it's me, authority is me, right? Timeline is me, need, timeline could be need. That I think that can get you some questions, but it's scary for an SDR because what happens if your KPI is 15 meetings and if you ask one more question, the meeting doesn't happen and now you got 13 meetings. You're not getting bonus for you did a good job and you didn't waste the AE's time. So it's fucking actually ruined from that perspective because like everyone's just trying to clout meetings, right? And that's not the real KPI; it's revenue, right? So um, that's all those points are really good points, and I think I'm hoping that with the boom of outsourced sales industry in general, that companies will spend more time hiring junior AEs and AEs because SDRs were almost like junior AEs, right? At the end of the
yeah,
day, and that stopped working, right? That worked in the beginning, and then people it stopped. So it's like just go back to hiring AEs, use Chorus, use Gong, train them, right?
yeah.
Do you think that would you consider when I first started in this agency, I was a sales guy, right? By sales guy, I meant like you know more comfortable face to face than I was on the phones. Well, that's not true, but you get what I'm saying, right? I now believe that SDR role or the activities that the SDR role produces would fall under marketing. It's also a trick question because I don't believe in marketing and sales. I believe in just revenue departments.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm not going to. So yeah, but closer to marketing, if marketing really existed, it's all revenue, right? Is that how you feel?
I do feel like that. And if you were to, say, put a gun to my head and tell me, hey, should SDR report to marketing or sales? I don't think so. But I'm totally with you that like it needs to be revenue driven, because a lot of marketing people I talk to, I mean, they have no idea. Like, like it's just that, hey, a lead came in, like, and then what happened? Like, what is a marketing qualified lead? How do we get more? How do we scale this? Do
Yeah.
your AEs like this? What's happening? It's not. I feel like marketing now is maybe just like, hey, I did some posts on social media, I did some content, but I fully agree with you that it needs to be tied up under revenue, and it needs to sort of be like, hey, all of these are different channels or sources that are driving leads to our revenue engine, essentially.
Yeah. That's how I'm running the department here. I'm literally I use metadata.io for my account based marketing, and I know exactly who my targets are, and I'm matching up categories in Apollo, which I also use for emailing,
Yeah,
and metadata, and I'm able to literally do brand awareness campaigns, lead generation campaigns to the same people that after 1 month, 2 months, I can email, call, and SMS, and I feel like that's where we're going to the part where you know the same adversarial problems that are caused by buyers of sales agency services is actually happening internally with marketing and sales teams. So marketing and sales teams are adversarial to each other the same way buyers sometimes are, right? And if we kind of break down all those walls and stop pointing the finger at each other, I think
yeah.
everybody will get better results, which is interesting. But yeah, we've gone that realm of just the revenue team. Um, and I think that's the future as well, which is going to be, I think great for agencies like ours, and even great for SDRs that honestly don't need to get hired and fired, have bad experiences. So many SDRs out there. I don't like sales. They weren't set up for success, right? and they make great AEs, and then they get into a different industry. So I feel like all the work that we're doing, for me, I love efficiency, and I feel like where we live as a marketplace, where you live as an agency, is creating efficiency, right? It's creating efficiencies in
Definitely.
people's
Yeah.
business units, and then they can focus on their technologies, right? Like if you have better efficiencies in your sales, spend more money making your technology better. Get that update that was supposed to roll out in Q1 that now you postponed to Q3. Get it down faster, right? So get back to making great technology and let the experts do their work. This has been awesome.
Exactly.
I want to get a little bit before we go. I want to get into just like your best clients. Like, let me ask you this question. I know you service software and services, but if you had to pick one, I love asking this question. What would you pick and why?
I
A
would
potential
pick
client.
software as a service.
Uh,
Yeah, I would pick
Why?
SaaS, so software as a service. I think it's the whole logic of predictable revenue, and not necessarily like what the book says, but like it's great to be in. We have scale teams where sort of you have that concept of MRR, or like what you were saying, you've
Yeah.
sort of broken down the revenue function. So hey, I need X number of SDRs, X number of AEs, X number of marketing people to support this, and then that's the sort of revenue that I can churn with this, or not churn with this, or create with this, and then with your churn rate and all. I just love the planability. I know that's not a word, but the
No,
how you can.
you like the fact that, yeah, it, right? And you're a sales ops, and you could break it down to a science. It
Yeah,
becomes more predictable, right? Services, sometimes one customer is $1 million, huge LTV.
yeah,
It's like soccer, like less
yeah.
goals,
It's
Um,
difficult, but it's fun. It's fun to create that sort of plan, to like execute it, and then either you're like, fuck, I couldn't do it, but
You
if
actually just like your whole body language just changed when you talked about it. Like you are passionate about what you do. Like, ladies and gentlemen, like even just talking about
yeah,
it makes you glow, which
it's,
I am
it's
too.
I love it when one of our SDRs here scores a meeting with like Fortune 1000 company in the
Yeah.
US. The AE says, "Hey, that went well," and I'm like, "Yes," and I see it as like, "Hey, this
Did you
system that
used to
we
play with Legos as a kid?
yeah, of
Yeah,
course,
you
I'm
like
a
building.
nerd."
Yeah. Well, you're not a nerd. You're intelligent. Intelligent people got labeled as nerds, huh? What kind of world do we live
Nerd is sexy, so
in? Self-label. No, I'm the same way. It's cool how we all fit together as well. Like for me, I think what's exciting is the fact that like I could pick your brain and you could pick my brain, right?
yeah,
I know certain things about certain industries that you might not. You know those things that I might not, but we can all help each other in the community like never before, which is exciting. And like that's how we met, right? We met through the community, right?
exactly.
And now you got two guys podcasting, sharing war stories that are halfway around the world in different places, but we both smile and laugh and glow when we talk about it, which is I think a thing that people don't get to see. I think people don't really understand that um, sales services are hard, and it's the hard thing of hard things is that the leaders are passionate about delivering the ingredients of revenue, which is the lifeline of your blood, right, of your business, right. So like we're like the army guys with the blood bags running to trying to save the patients, and sometimes we don't get the credit we deserve, but I think that's the best part about working in an industry that has the biggest impact on people's lives. So anybody listening to this, I wonder what industry and what location are we? Where is it? HR tech? Who are you? Someone's listening today. Like who is going to be? Like, tell me who your top best persona is. Is it USA market you're going to sell to?
So North America and Western Europe,
Okay,
so US and Canada, and Germany and the UK. That's like our sort of top location wise. And
awesome.
I think anyone who's doing over 1 million in revenue in ARR
Yep.
is good, because they have some sort of set processes, a little bit of what they want to know. And we do really well in HR tech, and sort of yeah, HR tech is the top one, and then we have some B2B platforms, which could be around cybersecurity or trade or whatever.
I know
And
a HR tech company has a campaign in the Philippines that needs help, so we got to talk about it after this podcast. I'm like a living SDR with a CRM brain. And that guy I know the guy because he was introduced to me like 10 years ago, and I've been following up with him. And he actually messaged me the other day that he's ready to go. So if it's HR, I'm gonna accept the call. Right, that's my job. I'm gonna make the match.
Yeah, amazing.
Anybody who wants to connect with you, to follow you, where can they find you? What's the best place to reach out to you and your company?
So we're online everywhere. So we have a website. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. The company's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So we have all of that covered. It's Scalemill. I'm sure you'll put up the name somewhere. So if you just Google this, we'll show up. And then
I tagged you
on the platform too. Once it's on your platform too. Once it's open.
We'll get you on there. This has been awesome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Transformer Sales Podcast, and really happy to have the CEO of Scalemill here, and looking forward to just creating more content for you guys with the goal of helping you guys hit your revenue goals, so that you can find amazing agencies and deploy your campaigns with predictability. Thank you for being a guest, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking to you. Has been music to my ears, at least. So keep up the great work. And
I work for you now. I work for the buyers and the sellers. I hold them back. I'm like, guys, play well with each other.
Great, perfect. Thanks. You're doing amazing work, and all the best for 2023.
Likewise, man. Take care. Thank you.